So on a Sunday afternoon, we were driving on Euclid Avenue in Inman Park, and we spotted the guy raking leaves in front of his house. And his house had the banner, so we stopped our car and asked him about the banner. And he explained about the Inman Park Butterfly banner and the organization. There were a bunch of crazy young people there buying old houses and beginning to fix them up. And we said, that is us.
And of course, in that time in Atlanta, Inman Park was a slum.
There was something about people who lived in Inman Park. They were activist people or whatever, live wire people, just really involved, engaged or whatever.
They said, what are you doing? I said, we're going to buy this neighborhood. We're going to own it. He said, buy color televisions. That's the market we think you should sell. And I said, we don't need colored televisions. We need our houses. We needed to live in places that we owned.
Trying to the extent that's possible in a city, trying to take hold of our own destiny and to control how our land was used and to continue the neighborhood character that we had. And I think we were able to do that because of and I've always said, the accident of who came to live in our neighborhood. We had the benefit of so much brain power and so much talent that when we needed these people, they were there.
Because it was our whole life. Our whole married life has been in Inman Park and dedicated to doing that.
I took the house and with the help of my next door neighbors who had been longtime friends, began to get to know other people in the neighborhood. And because we were all struggling to buy our homes and try to find a place to live within them, we started sharing tools and would have Friday night get-togethers and have potlucks. And I think that was a lot of what made the neighborhood so successful, was that when we saw a problem, we did say, okay, we can do something about it.
The people, they're good people. They're wise, they're kind, they're considerate, and you felt at home.
I think that families that gravitated to Inman Park to raise their children there kind of were all of a similar mind. I feel like, I don't want to say politics exactly, but a philosophy of life that, is inclusive, and that includes all generations.
Everybody knew everybody and their business. It was a very tight-knit neighborhood. If somebody was sick, the whole neighborhood made soup and took it to the folk.
I had a lot in common. Culturally, I guess, not necessarily professionally. We had a diverse group of people in terms of their career choices, but all had the common interest of the neighborhood.
But these two women, I was out there breaking up the clay with a mattock, and one of the women was I think Rosen was driving, and Eileen was riding shotgun, and Eileen rolled down the window and said, we're going to have a work day on Saturday up at the park or whatever. We're going to plant some holly bushes or whatever, for it's a volunteer thing. And I said, what? I've got this yard today. I'm not doing that. And they said, no. You own a property. They said, do you own this house? And I said, yes. They just, you need to contribute. You need to come to this work day. So that was the beginning of my volunteerism.
It's a very, very close neighborhood and good friends and good things to do. This festival every year. I've worked on every festival since 1976. Been on lots of committees and, just doing stuff. Co-founded the Tree Watch Committee with Nancy Morrison back in either 98 or 99. And We've planted over 2,000 trees in the neighborhood over that time, over the last 20 years.
Because it's home. I mean, Richard and I were talking about this last night. There's neighbors. So, I mean, everybody has neighbors. And everybody knows how nice that is. But there's also community. And that's what we have. It's the sense that even if you don't know somebody well, they're still a part of your community. And so we have friends, we have close friends, and we have neighbors who we're close to. But we have this greater community, and there's a sense of sharing what we experience there.
Don't be ashamed of the political ideology that gave birth to this neighborhood. This is a public, hardworking group that earned what they got, period. There are personal problems and there are sort of public problems. The individual problems are small and one individual can get away with it. But the collective problems we have require everybody to get on board, at least enough to get a critical mass working.
We ended up electing 67 politicians, and we elected Ulysses Collins, who ended up being Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I always said we had to get somebody in the Supreme Court in case we had to go back, because we were constantly in lawsuits and fighting and going to court all the time. So that worked out real well. But it's been a saga, that's for sure. And we had legal fights. We were always in court. We'd win some, lose some.
It's interesting trying to communicate to new neighbors what festival means. Because for a lot of them, you know, when we moved in because we really couldn't afford to be anyplace else. That was pretty much, and we together joined in we didn't create the community, but we joined into the creation of this community. People who buy in Inman Park now, many of them buy because they want to be in that location. And because it's a good, the houses appreciate it's just, and we've got so many amenities that we didn't used to have. And so there's that category of people. Then there are people who buy because they want to be in Inman Park. They like the history of it. They like the old houses. They like the feeling of community. And then there are people who just somehow stumble on it. And so the challenge is to bring them all in. The challenge is to communicate to them what it all means and why it's important. Because the way the neighborhood views it and has viewed it all along is this is a party for us. We invite everybody to come because we love what we have and we want to share it. But really, it's what unites us. It's this common sense of purpose that every year we do this sort of magical thing.
But a lot of the people are the same. They're basically the same breed that we are, And I've always got my eye open for those people because, those are the young people that we want to make sure are nurtured and recognize the value of this community.
There's an obligation to do it because it's been going on, and you just have to keep it going on. It's an honor and it's fun. And it's what holds the neighborhood together.
And so we recruited people to be block captains. So on every block, we had someone who would personally talk to everybody else on their block and explain to them, you ought to sell beer for 2 hours. It's so much fun. Once you do it, You won't ever not work at festival because part of the fun is being there in your butterfly T-shirt and everybody says, "Woo, that person lives in Inman Park. Cool."
But I think we've attracted families and made it a good neighborhood. And it's the volunteerism that is so important. And just having the vision that small town downtown, that was one of our early themes of festival.
But there are people to help you, other people like you and want to work with you and want to pick on problems. And there's no more constructive thing you can do for your city, state, federal government, but most of all for your children, to demonstrate them through your behavior how they can work together. Then we can solve the problems of bad trees or bad sidewalks, all the rest of it. It's all within our capabilities. And it is not a good reason for reaching out and grabbing the hand of the person next to you and giving it a try.
I'd hate to see it lose what it has. And what it has is that sense of community. In my heart of hearts, I'd like to see some sort of senior facility because we really, really don't want to leave. There are a bunch of us who are trying to figure out how to make that happen. Trying to find, there's no land. With very little. There's very few opportunities. But, you're kind of looking at some of the apartment houses and thinking, how could that be retrofitted so that we could all stay together? We just don't want to leave.
You have to go out and try to do something good as a community. You become like a family, an extended family.
I think that there are times and places that sort of define an era. It defined an era for me, certainly. But the way that people came from lots of different places into Inman Park in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, recognizing the beauty of the neighborhood and the homes in the neighborhood, and recognizing that it was a place that really needed to be restored. And then, the community that kind of grew out of that desire to keep the art and the culture of the neighborhood alive, of the homes. It really is the homes are the foundation of it all. It's something that's hard to replicate, As an adult, as I've moved throughout the world, I've tried to recreate it because it was so magical. Just that balance of community and love and support and art and hard work and civic mindedness, all of that. It's been really hard to recreate. I've lived in Denver and I live in Hawaii now, and I've come the closest to recreating it in Hilo, Hawaii, which is a really small town. Just 50,000 is our city, and I live in an old house that I'm renovating, and all my neighbors are renovating their houses, and we're all do-it-yourselfers. And I just think Inman Park really, it was just magical for me. Definitely.
Perhaps more than any other neighborhood, more than any other effort in Atlanta, in this part of Georgia, Inman Park stand out. It's a place where people use their resources, their time, their space, to do something, to mount a movement. And it's a lesson to other neighborhoods, other communities and towns and cities, that when you want something, you have to fight for it. You have to stand up. You have to organize the unorganized and be willing to get out there and push and pull